for me, that was my desert. I was going out of Egypt where I feel like I was a slave to sin, and God was sort of purifying me in a way. Now, I'm not pure by no means whatsoever, but a lot of those chains were broken during that time, during that hardship, during the depression and the grieving and all that. It really helped cleanse me.
Welcome to the Life and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Sue Bravo. This is the podcast where we teach you how to live life well by doing business better. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Reed Choi, with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to kind of dive into not just like the strategies. If you guys have never seen any of his videos, one, they're hilarious, but two, if you've seen his videos and his account, he has 8 million followers. And I think that oftentimes when people meet him, you know, from the business side, they might just want to be asking like, how did you get 8 million followers? What is your strategy? And unfortunately, this is not the episode for that. I feel like we are going to dive into just like deeper conversations about life, about business, building a business, content creation, kind of like that side of the world and the mental and emotional side of it as well. The first question that I had when I was like, cool, we're going to bring you on as a guest, it is literally just 8 million followers.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like when you really think about 8 million fans out there in the internet and in real life world. How does that feel for you?
To be honest, I try not to think about it. It's kind of too big of a number to really wrap your head around. I think once I stopped doing it once I hit like 10,000.
Okay.
Because then I was like, I don't think it's good for my ego or anything like that to let those numbers get to your head. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I was very curious because I think that you're pretty young. So I feel like it can get so easy to be like, cool, I've got all these followers. I've got millions and millions of people who love me and adore me and then build your life on that, right?
Yeah.
And so how have you been able to separate that? Just like you said, when you get to 10K, you're like, oh no, I'm separating myself from, you know, my identity being attached to a number. How were you able to do that?
I had to make sure I kept some parts of my life sacred that I won't reveal to anyone. So like, the biggest thing would be my friends. Like you won't see me post any of my closest friends because I just want that to be mine. And working out, being able to separate my social media life from the rest of my life. That's how I kept sane, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. And that kind of goes into this one question. I know he's a musician, a comedian, and an actor. And I was very curious, like, do you remember the first like video or piece of content that you put out into the world?
Sadly, yeah, because it's still up. It's, I think it was like the 5 types of guys that you meet at church. And I think it was like the praise team leader, the F-boy, the jock, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really cringe.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. That's so funny. I'm
can't
glad you
watch
remember it. That's great though.
My followers won't let me forget.
Oh my That's great. And with that, I was just curious with all content creators, like why did you start posting content out into the world?
I kind of stumbled onto it, to be honest. It was I started in March 2020, so right when Corona and everything hit, and I just needed something to do. So I started TikTok not because I was like, oh, I'm gonna become, big on that platform. It was just like I'm losing my mind, not going outside, and I just need an outlet. And then, like 10 days in, things really blew up for me. I got like 10,000 followers. And that's when I decided to go all in.
That's amazing. So did you have like a daytime job then and then you during that time period in March and then left, or no, you weren't working at all because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I wasn't working at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
if I had a daytime job, I think it would have been different. But yeah, no.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad that you stumbled upon that because now everybody gets to have joy and laugh at the videos that you make. I was curious because your first video, you said all these different personalities, and this might just be like your skill as an actor, but how do you come up with I just feel like it takes so much, and maybe just because I'm not an actor, I feel like it takes so much creativity to come up with all the different characters and then all the different scripts for all the different characters. But does that come easy for you? I don't know. What is your creative process, I guess?
Okay, there's a couple questions there. My most natural creative process is to, I guess, just sit in my living room and kind of just like go like this, and then just kind of go insane until an idea comes. But when I'm like making a character, really I'm just kind of drawing inspiration from my real life, and so I'll just be acting what I know. Yeah, I'm not really making nothing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, pulling from life experiences. What do you feel like in, having built that following? Do you feel like having that number of followers, like just knowing that there are people out there in the world, do you feel like that has positively affected or negatively affected like your creative outlet and what you put out into the world?
To be honest, it's just a number to me. So I never really, like when I'm making a video, that thought never comes to my mind. But I guess it would motivate me to keep making content because I know that there's people that I guess I'm sort of loyal to in that way, that I want to continue to provide content for. So probably overall a net positive.
That's good. I think I asked because I've heard of some content creators where they say like if they post something and it doesn't hit a specific number by a specific, like the first hour or something, they will like delete it. But you don't feel that way. You don't feel like there's judgment or criticism to where like you're like, if it flops, it flops. If it does great, it does great.
Yeah, I do that sometimes if it's a video that like, because not every video I make is one that I'm in love with, and so I just kind of have like a quota that like every day I have to release something. But if it's not something that I'm too crazy about and it doesn't do too well, I have no qualms with deleting it. But if it's a video that I really cared about and it's important to me, even if it doesn't do well, I'll keep it up.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. What do you feel like has been the biggest challenge in continuing? I mean, it's been almost 4 years now, right? 4.5 years. What do you feel like has been your biggest challenge in creating content and putting your creativity out into the world?
I guess trying to stay true to my voice. At the beginning, you get kind of addicted to all the positive feedback, but then you'll get negative feedback, and then that's kind of when the real, I guess, hurdles start coming through, and you'll be tempted to conform. And so like when you have like millions of followers, there's a lot of voices headed your way, and so being able to sort of cipher through and figuring out who you are, and really what you're trying to say, even if it's a funny video, what you're trying to say, that's probably the most important.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about that, right? Like, I don't think that as human beings, we weren't built or designed to have millions of people's opinions to us, Like, we're meant to have our local community speak life into us, and that's it. And so I think that's a huge challenge to now have millions and millions of people speak their opinion all day, every day, behind a keyboard. And so when you said, it's being true to your voice, this might be like a weird question, but I'm curious. What do you feel like is your true voice?
My true voice is probably something that's not too polished. It's hypocritical. And people are probably going to disagree with it.
On my drive here, I was actually thinking about the type of podcast I'm making, and I feel like normally we would come early and we'd have a conversation. I would tell
Sorry
people.
about that.
No, that's okay. No, I was just going to say, normally I would tell my guests that, this podcast is not meant to have people be like, I agree. It's actually supposed to help people shift their mindset about what does building a successful life look like? What does building a successful business look like? And so I think that's a great word, is like having that courage. I think there's actually a book called like The Courage to Be Disliked. And so I think that I love that that's a part of your, your voice is like people are going to disagree with you, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I definitely think that a lot of your videos, even though there's humor in it, I think they are very polarizing to some people, right? And I think, and you can clarify this too, I think I saw a video or a snippet, maybe it was like a story about, I think you were talking about your depression and God and content creation all together. Tell me more about that.
My approach to being a content creator when I talk about my faith is that kind of going back to not being too polished. I feel like there's enough Christian content creators showing how strong their relationship with God is. Me, I kind of just want to show honestly what I'm going through. And so I don't know specifically which video you're talking about, but the one that comes to mind is a video I made right after doing this prayer, and in the word I drop an F-bomb, and I got a lot of negative comments for it, but I felt like it was the right thing to do because it was honestly what happened. And obviously you shouldn't curse towards God, but it was an honest depiction of where I am with my faith and how I deal with my faith as a hypocrite. And I'm just, I guess, a bad guy trying to be a good guy, And when it comes to content creation, the way that I approach it is, again, don't be too polished, be honest, and understand that, yeah, you're going to mess up, and so some people are going to be rubbed the wrong way. But at the end of the day, you can only be who you are,
Yeah.
And there's only one perfect person.
Yeah. Just pausing and thinking on that for a second, because I feel like you said, when you're like a bad person just trying to be good, again, we're not supposed to have 8 million people expressing their opinions on us trying to just be good, And so I would say, like, that's probably a huge learning lesson for anyone out there who is either, one, you're being judged, or two, you are judging other people, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you trying to help the other person be a good person, and or are you trying to be a good person? And just having like so much grace and compassion for that. But I definitely, like you said, like I think that shows us that you're continuing to be true and authentic to your voice, even if there's people out there telling you that, hey, you shouldn't have done that, That's just like you sharing your honesty. And so I think that's like a privilege to have a platform where you get to be honest and not swayed by the world.
And to be honest, I feel as though, well, I'm kind of the case in point that no matter what you do, you're going to be misunderstood. And rarely are people ever going to know who you really are, no matter how many perspectives of yourself that you put out there. And so it's not really about trying to get people to understand you. It's really you being comfortable with what you put out there.
Mm. Yeah.
And I don't think I'd be comfortable if I only put out the picture-perfect versions of myself.
Do you know a lot of other content creators out there who are struggling with that piece of like feeling comfortable in themselves and the willingness to?
Yeah. Every single one of them.
Yeah. What do you feel like is the biggest differentiator between content creators who are comfortable with staying true to themselves and those who just kind of like crumble under the social pressures?
Well, to be honest, I think most people that get a following psychologically aren't ready and probably shouldn't have it. And case in point being, once they get that following, it's so precious to them that they're afraid to lose it, that at the price of who they are, they become whatever they think their followers or the media wants them to be. So most of the people that I've encountered, they don't really have the intestinal fortitude to really be brave enough to show who they really are. And I don't really hold it against them because it's a really heavy weight when you have your first viral video. You're really happy about it, but after a while, you realize when you're trying to revamp the virality, what kind of weight that is on your shoulders. And so I don't blame them for not showing them who they are. But yeah, most of the people that I met with a sizable following are probably putting up a mask. Yeah. I am too in some ways too. I'm just trying to get better at it.
Yeah. And as you're getting better at it, right? What would you say to encourage somebody to like step into their authentic self?
On social media or just as a person?
I would say both, like how they are presenting themselves in their everyday life, because I feel like that leaks into who they portray themselves to be in social media as well.
I can only speak from my experience. Really, the biggest thing that helped me was having a core group of friends that I've known for at least 10 years. So most of them I've known for longer. And so they know me from me. And so these people kind of keep me in check. And so having that to fall back on, that helps. And then obviously a relationship with God, because then the Holy Spirit will lead you to, it can only lead you to truth. And yeah, those two things for me.
Yeah. I don't know if you know the artist Brandon Lake, but I remember him talking about, he's a Christian artist as well. And he was talking about how, like, he'll go out on tour and he'll have, you know, thousands and thousands of fans out in the not the auditoriums, like the football stadiums. And then he comes back home to reality where, like, his wife is not, you know, screaming, shouting his name, and his friends are not screaming, shouting his name. And then he's humbled, right? Yeah. And so it sounds like you've got amazing friends who just humble you, right? Because they're just like, hey, we know you for who you are, not for your 8 million followers. And so, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and they knew me before anything.
Yeah.
You know, so that helps.
So that's so good. So I would say find friends who are going to humble you, right? And not continue to build on that ego, you know? Yeah. And when it comes to, I'm interested in the music because I feel like sometimes you're singing on your accounts, and then I saw that you recently did a show. Was that at the beginning of this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
Awesome.
That was your first one, yeah?
That was my first one.
Okay. And how did you get into music? And I don't know, how is that different from creating like comedy skits?
Yeah, it was. So the concert was, I think, like it was after Christmas, but before New Year's. I forgot which day exactly, but every December I kind of have this thing that I've always done. I just like obsessing over something that I can just do every day for like 8 hours a day. And last December I was just like, okay, I want to do something with music. And I remember learning, I think it was from like 4 Hour Workweek or something. No, it must have been 4 Hour Chef. But it's like the best way to learn or force you to do anything is to have super high stakes. And so I knew I wanted to write music. So I was like, okay, why don't I do a concert? Yeah. And so I just pitched it to my audience like a month before in my broadcast channel. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, hey, I'm going to do a concert. I didn't even pick out a venue yet. I was just like, here's the tickets where you can buy tickets. And then within like the first 24 hours, almost half of them were just sold out. And so I was like, oh, okay, so now I have to do this. Yes. And within that week, all of them were sold out. And so I think I had, by that time, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to prepare about an hour set. And so I wrote like 8 songs.
Oh my goodness.
And I had great feedback. Everybody seemed to love it. And can't wait to do it again. I'll probably do one again in the end of the year.
Okay, awesome. I was just going to ask you if you see more concerts and more music in your future. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That's so cool. Yes, very talented musician as well. So that's so cool. I love that idea of like high stakes. We're doing it, right? Just put it out into the world and the world will hold you accountable. So that's awesome. I think that reminds me of like anytime I'm like setting a goal, I'm like, I'm only going to share it with like one person, because it's only one person holding me accountable versus like if I put it out into social media, now all my audience is like, when is that happening? So that's great. When it comes to acting, I've been seeing your short films. What kind of experience has that been?
Oh, also really cool. Yeah. I kind of really just stumbled onto it. I got an acting manager, and then they sent me the audition for the Darman, and I got it like the next day. And then after I filmed that one, they just kept giving me more and more roles. I'm taking a break right now because I'm so exhausted from filming. And then yeah, gonna do my first full feature length film next February, so I'm pretty excited about that and just see where God takes me through that.
Yeah. So is that something you can talk more about or not yet? Because there's still...
All I can say, is coming out in theaters in next year on Christmas.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Next year at Christmas. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we'll have to wait to see that live. But that's so exciting. That's awesome to be able to see that.
Yeah.
You know, just like taking one step of like, I just kind of need to put content out there for myself, and then now seeing it 4 years, being so consistent, and seeing like all the fruits of that, you know.
Yeah.
And
although I do want to say I did make a little a shift in content, because I knew I wanted to take acting more seriously, and so that's why I started doing longer form skits and also doing just serious skits that weren't comedic at all. And that's how I kind of got eyes from producers and directors. That's actually how I got the movie role. They saw one of my serious skits. So
yeah, that's so awesome. I think that's great to know for people too, that sometimes when you have a different goal, then you kind of pivot. And I've been seeing that in your content of like lots of comedy and then kind of like you said, like more serious acting. And something that you had said about the movie role, the featured film, letting the Holy Spirit lead you in that way. How do you feel like the Holy Spirit has led you in your content creation process?
One of my biggest, I guess, struggles was giving up that portion of my life to God, because I was afraid that if I gave it to Him, that He would just take it away. Because I'd done that before. I would give something to God and He would just take it away. And so I was really afraid of doing that until some early last year, probably, if not the year before. I decided to just give it all to God, and that was probably one of the best decisions in my life, because He took it and then just expanded and multiplied and blessed everything in my life. And it's crazy how much or how little I have to do with all the things that are coming in my life right now. It's just like God's just like, all right, here you go. You're gonna do this and this and this, and
Yeah, I always love hearing when people say the hardest thing to do is surrendering it, like, and fully surrendering it, and not just be like, I'll surrender like my Instagram, but not my TikTok, right? No, like fully surrendering it all to God. Because I think about like in Ephesians where it talks about like God is able to do like far greater things than you could ever ask, think, or imagine. And I feel like you're getting to experience that now, right? Where you're like, wow, I thought maybe I was just going to be TikTok and Instagram creator, you know, and now you get to do all these acting and all these feature films. And I think that's just really encouraging and a great reminder to be like, yeah, when we do the hard thing, God gets to do so much more. And I think that's like that's like an example of us partnering with God, because the whole time, like, we say we're walking with God, but really, like, we're doing our own thing, and He's just waiting for us to give Him the opportunity to show up and do all the amazing things that He can do. And so when you think about kind of like fully surrendering it to God, I know you had mentioned there was like fear behind Him taking it. So what do you feel like allowed you, in spite of the fear, to still surrender it to Him?
I think prior to that, it was just growing my faith. And I would surrender different parts of my life that weren't social media to Him. And the more and more I surrendered, the more and more everything was kind of pointing to like God saying like, okay, that's great, but I need you to give this to me, because this is where I can show you my wonders. And but again, you know, it's faith. So I never really got that, okay, now's the time. It's kind of like at some point you're going to have to take that leap. And I gave it to God. And like, I don't know, now, a year, a little more later, like those Christian videos have reached, I think, over 100 million people now. And the DMs that I get about how it's positively affected their faith, it's awesome.
Yeah. And that was going to be kind of like my next piece here is like thinking about, like, do you think about the impact that your content makes?
Yeah. I don't think I can ever definitively know exactly what kind of impact, but I definitely try to keep that in mind. Like, be smart about, like, the videos that I make.
And what do you feel like the impact is that you do want to make? Like, have you thought about that? What is like the mission piece behind maybe not just like the content now, but like the films that you're a part of and things like that? Do you feel like you've ever considered, what is the specific impact that you're looking to make?
One would be, I'd like to help in the endeavor of making Asians cool. Not just...
I thought we were already cool.
Or cooler. You know,
Cooler.
like I still think there's a lot of work to be done, or at least I just want to help.
Yeah.
In that aspect. I would like to make Asians be less known for how we look or the color of our skin. Like, for me, I've always said I don't want to be known as an Asian American actor or Asian actor. I just want to be an actor. I don't want to be an Asian content creator. I'm just a content creator. And so the way you do that is by being ubiquitous and being seen everywhere and just getting everyone used to seeing your type of face. And so it doesn't stand out so much. You're not, oh, it's that Asian guy. It's just like, it's that guy, you know. That would be one. And then two, I've always wanted to be like covertly converting people. Like, I remember a couple years ago, before I even became public about my faith, I did this like trilingual rap video, and I said some part of a prayer or something about the Holy Spirit in Korean and the next part in Japanese, but I split it in ways that you couldn't tell unless you spoke both languages. But it was like a covert way that they're hearing God's word without them knowing. So something like that. I'd love to seep Christian morals and ideals and get people closer to God and help people down that road.
Yeah, I love that. That I feel like that is a part of the mission of this podcast is covertly converting people. Just like helping people see like, hey, you don't have to create content by yourself. You don't have to make these decisions by yourself. Like, you could ask God, you know, ask him to even just help give you clarity or direction. And so I love that piece. And of course, making Asians cooler. So that's so fun. This is a super random question that I just thought of right now because I saw a video and you're like, it was a skit, so I'm not sure how serious or joking you were. Are you Chinese or are you Singaporean and or neither? I don't know. I'm kind of confused. You're so neither. Okay, so you're
I know.
Okay, you know. So I was like, I don't know, is he talking about himself or not? Okay.
I get that question.
So you were talking about Singaporeans, you were not talking about yourself. Okay. So you were Korean.
Do you know what that video was inspired by?
Maybe not.
Okay,
maybe
so
not.
there was this Congress hearing with the TikTok CEO.
Okay.
And they couldn't understand the fact that he was Singaporean. They kept asking, he's like, so are you Chinese? And he's like, no, I'm Singaporean. And it's like, so is that yes? Like,
so that was a real life example.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I totally thought you made it. Like that was an actual thing that happened between humans. Wow. Okay, so you're neither. Okay. So clearing it up for I'm sure other people who might be confused and not just me, you're Korean. Very cool. Awesome. And you know what? We both live in, you know, Southern California, Los Angeles area. Have you lived here your whole life or?
No, I grew up in Georgia.
Oh, wow.
And New York, and then I came over here. I was born here, but I moved over when I was a kid to Georgia. Very
cool. I grew up in Massachusetts, and then I moved to California. I don't know, decade ago. Okay, I had to ask that question because I get confused.
That's a big move.
So now I know. Yeah. But I mean, that was a big move for you too. Did you
Yeah.
come here by yourself or with family when you moved from Georgia to California?
With family.
Okay, with family.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Something else that I like to kind of just like talk about on the show is like stewarding your gifts. I think that oftentimes people in their regular life, in their career or in their business are just always like looking for that calling, right? Like trying to figure out like, what am I good at? What am I supposed to do? I'm good at everything. What am I supposed to do? And so when you think about stewarding the gifts that God has given you, which are many, right? How do you feel like you're doing with stewarding the gifts? And do you feel like you could be doing it better? Or do you feel like you're totally just handing it over to God? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely could be doing better. I think God has a lot of mercy with me. In terms of like cultivating or stewarding the gifts, I'm kind of lucky in the way that since I was a kid, I kind of always knew I wanted to do something in front of a camera or something at least creative. Because like when I was a kid, like I was weird. I could just draw like 8 hours a day, just no breaks. I could just do that. And I knew I wanted to do something creative. And so in that way, I think I'm kind of lucky compared to other people, because when I talk to people, they don't really have that. They kind of have to struggle to figure out what they're supposed to do. Yeah, but definitely I could be doing a lot better.
Okay. Well, we'll see more of your gifts coming out. So with that, I wonder, like, what is your family support or maybe even like friends, family support when it comes to your creative side and just like all of your endeavors? What does your support system look like?
Support? What do you mean by support system?
That could be community, friends, family, church. Like, do you feel like you have people that support the things that you're doing?
Oh, okay.
Or do you feel like are people more like, hey, no, you shouldn't do that?
Yeah, no, I don't have anybody in my life that's like, you shouldn't do that. If they do, I think I would cut them out. Yeah, but luckily, my friends have just been endlessly supportive, and to the point where, like, if I'm going through a tough time, you know, I don't have to ask them. They'll just like, hey, let's go get something to eat, you know. And my aunt, she's like diehard cheerleader. Like, I could kill somebody and she would lie for me on the spot, you know. So it's good to have those ride or dies in your life. And honestly, I don't think I'd be here if I didn't have them.
Yeah. When you think about, you know, I'll say the success that you've created, do you feel like you would be here whether or not you had their support anyway?
Oh, no way. Yeah, no way. In 2021, it was kind of like the hardest year of my life. I lost a lot of people in quick succession, and that was the darkest point in my life. And so I was thinking of ending it all. And so if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be here. Nothing would have, you know, came of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like I just think about that for a minute because I don't think that, you know, like I think oftentimes people just see the person on their phone
Yeah.
and they don't realize like, oh, hey, this person's a human being and they're going through human being real life emotions. And if you don't mind us going into this direction, what do you feel like they were able to do to help you come out of that? And I think I asked this question because I think so many of us experience friends or family who are in that state of mind, right? And how do we show up for them in a way that is supportive and loving and able to help them come out of that? So what do you feel like your friends and family did that helped you overcome that?
Okay. Two things. The first thing is my family needed me. And so for a short time, I didn't have the space to complain, which was almost a good thing because I think if I dealt with those emotions right there, when they were so raw, I would have done something probably I would have regret or dire. And so because they needed me to take care of them at that point in time, I sort of had to detach from my emotions and be the man of the family, do what needs to get done. And then my friends, like I said, they knew I was going through a tough time, and so they would be there for me. And the fact that when I wanted to talk about my emotions, I could, but when I didn't want to talk about emotions, I didn't have to. And we can just be buddies that have known each other for like 10 years and just make fun of each other, talk crap, laugh, and let me just escape for an hour before I go back to the hell that I was in. And then once I had that time where I wasn't allowed to grieve because I needed to be the rock for other people, then God came in, the relationship that I had with God. I had to take care of another person to the point where I was like, just where I was already emotionally depleted. I felt like I didn't have anything to give, but because God wanted me to take care of this person, I did it, and probably the Holy Spirit helped me find that energy that I just didn't have. And then once that was over, which was a whole like 8-month journey, oddly enough, I had to learn the miracle that I was looking for. I wasn't going to get from someone else. It had to start with me, and I had to learn how to love myself. I realized the way that I was talking to myself mentally, the way that I was treating myself emotionally, it wasn't healthy. And so really it was just starting with a small step that I still do, or try to do to this day. I just look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, I love you, and I'm going to work on loving you better. And those words, even I'll catch myself like probably like 2 days ago, I was like just going through like a mental rut, and I was just like, hey, I love you. 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 And that kind of got me out of it. Yeah, because you can't give what you don't have yourself.
Yeah.
And so the friends and family helped me get to the point where I could emotionally deal with things and then forgive myself and then learn to love myself so that I can reflect the love that they've shown me.
Yeah, that's so, I don't know. I feel like both like heavy to think about, but then also so just encouraging to be like, there's just like so much hope at the end, you know? And I think about this word of like suffering well. Suffering well requires so much selflessness, because in your suffering where you're like, my life's already kind of crappy right now. God's all, okay, I also want you to do this, right? And so when you were already, again, in just a season of suffering, and God was like, I also need you to take care of this person, how were you feeling like in that moment when you had to say yes? Not had to, but out of just like desire to be obedient and faithful to God. How were you feeling in that moment?
In an ironic way, I had a really tough life even before that. And so it wasn't my first time wrestling with these questions. And so I kind of knew already that, sometimes the suffering you're going through isn't for you. Sometimes God's using that suffering you're going through so you can be an example for other people that are going through their own hell, and so they can see what you're going through and be like, you know what? If he can go what he's going through and still praise God, I can definitely do better myself, that type of thing. And then there's that question, like, it's easy to have faith in God when he's giving you everything you want. But the real test is when you don't get anything that you want. And maybe you can't even hear him anymore.
Yeah.
That's when the faith really, gets sharpened. And when you go through that, like for me, that was my desert. I was going out of Egypt, where I feel like I was a slave to sin, and God was sort of purifying me in a way. Now I'm not pure by no means whatsoever, but a lot of those chains were broken during that time, during that hardship, depression and uh, the grieving and all that, it really helped cleanse me. In that way, sure, the suffering was for me, but it was just a way for God to show his faithfulness, because like in the Bible, like God doesn't show his wonders when everything's going right. It's when you have nothing but God, then he goes in.
Yeah. And I think that aligns perfectly with just like the timeline of you talking about surrendering everything, and then now him just showing up in all these grand, crazy ways that, that we couldn't even think about or imagine. So that's so amazing. And I wanted to ask about this concept of not speaking healthily and kind to ourselves, because I think a lot of people do it and they don't even realize that they're doing it. And so, I don't know, I want to ask, like, what are the examples of the things that you were telling yourself? And then what were the examples that the new things that you had to believe and begin to tell yourself?
Yeah. I think the most common misconception of like negative self-speak is like when you're the subject of what you're saying, like, oh, you idiot, blah, 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 blah. There's people that do that, and that's common. But most of the times, it's like when you mess up, you say something like, oh, of course. Or, it's just things that you're not kind to yourself. And the words that you're saying in and of itself might not be directed towards you, but because you're thinking it, it's affecting you without you knowing. And the way that I combated it was, one, telling myself that I love myself and I'm going to work on loving myself better. But also, I really love my grandparents, and they're the people in my life that I can say that I treated probably close to perfectly, because I love them so much. And so I would just ask myself, okay, if I was my grandpa right now, how would I be talking to him the way that I'm talking to me right now? And so whoever is your grandpa in your life, switch shoes, and then you kind of realize, oh wow, I'm kind of being really mean to myself right now, and having that volume switch, it helped.
Do you feel like you learned that from somewhere, or did it kind of just like pop up in your mind? As in, I asked because I'm wondering, what resources did you take up? Or I think this is more for like the audience and the listeners who are talking negatively to themselves. How can they begin to speak kindly to themselves?
So I love myself and I'm going to work on loving myself more is one of the like miracles in my life, because, okay, this is going to sound really crazy, but I was at a LA Fitness in a jacuzzi, and then there was this big black guy just in the pool, and he just starts talking to me without me propositioning him at all. And then he tells me that he has a voice of an angel. And then he tells me that what I should do is look at myself in the mirror, say that I love me, and I'm going to work on loving myself better. I was like, okay. And I start doing it, and it actually starts helping. But then, like, years later, I, like, look up. No, I just watch her. I don't know. I learn about, like, people's encounters with, like, angels. And, like, for the Archangel Gabriel, the most common description of encountering Gabriel is a beautiful black man. And so I'm not saying that I met Gabriel, but to me, I'll take that miracle.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
And so that was like a crazy
so cool.
moment for me. But for the positive self-talk, really cliche, but Anthony Robbins, you know him?
Is that Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, normally
Yeah.
I say, yeah, for sure.
He's great.
Yeah. Have you gone to any of his like seminars or not yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. I think that also life transformative for me. I had always wanted to be a life coach. I don't think anybody knows what that is. So it was just kind of like in the back of my mind. And then the pandemic happened. I was in like 6 years of just like trauma. And then I finally went to one of his things and was like, that is life coaching. My life completely changed.
Yeah.
And so,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
He's great. He's great.
I've only heard good things about the events, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's like...
Did you do firewalk and all that?
No, I didn't. I did an online version, and that was the first year because in 2020 was a pandemic, and I think in 2021, the beginning, they decided to do online. They had never done online before because they obviously want immersive in person. And I'm so, this was a blessing from the pandemic because I have 4 kids. Mine are 3, 5, 8, and 9. And so during that time, I just had a newborn. So there's no way I'm going to be going for like 7 days to a seminar. And so I was so grateful that they did it online virtually. And so, yeah, that was, I didn't get to do the fire walk.
But he still like,
he did,
and
yeah,
everything,
he still did the whole, like, everything on Zoom with like thousands and thousands of people. It's like, it was crazy.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it was still like 3 days of like 12 hours of like immersive, like teaching and learning and growth and breakthroughs.
But it was still engaging that.
Yeah, for sure. It was still, I was
only
very
he
surprised.
can do that.
I know. I was very surprised. It's like completely just life changing through a screen, through a TV. So I'm like,
awesome.
I can't imagine what in person would be like, you know? And so, yeah, he's great. So I don't think it's cliche at all. I think he's amazing. He's saving lives everywhere. And just like we were talking about the impact of like, we don't know what the kind of impact we're making. He doesn't know we're sitting here talking about him, right? And so that's so amazing. And so I think I'll end it here with this last question that I just like to ask of, you know, on this podcast, we really want to just inspire people to, again, be able to like live a life really well and amazing and thriving by doing business differently. And so even as content creators and actors and musicians, my question to you is, how do you feel like you are doing business differently?
Okay, there's a lot of ways I can answer this question. One is, I mean, I'd be happy to be a part of big media, but that's not what I'm building towards. What I'm building is trying to build my own thing so that I can build the projects that I want and self-fund. And so I'm kind of doing like the, I forgot the studio company. Is it A24? But like, they couldn't get their projects approved through like Paramount, and so they decided to self-fund and everything, crowdfund and all that. And so that's number one. And then number two is I'm trying to, I feel like the world has become too, well, secular in a way. And so I would like to bring it back to its Christian roots. And so in terms of like roles, like I won't do any like, what is it, nudity, like sex scenes or stuff like that. And just being vocal about my faith while doing so. Yeah, because I think Christians should be more proud of their heritage.
Yeah, love that. Okay, and I feel like that goes back to the authenticity in your voice. And so I love that you're able to bring that into just continuing to do business differently in that way. And so with that, I want to say thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Yeah, I'm so excited for everybody to listen and just be encouraged and inspired by your story.
Yeah, this was awesome. It's great.